What is going on, guys? In today's video I will show you the top 5 best builds in part of Exile's 2 new update, the Dawn of the Hunt. So in this guide I will give you a quick overview of the setup, then I will explain what skills and upgrades should you focus on, then as well we'll see what is the best gear and how to get it. And then finally we will go over the passive skill tree, stats, your skill rotations, and even what charm should you use, so we would be able to get the highest damage possible and much more. This setup revolves around scaling Bone Shatter self-damage into a power to then further convert it into huge damage numbers. The core gameplay loop involves around initiating combat with a Leap Slam to prime enemies for stun, which is then followed by detonating them with the Bone Shatter for massive AoE damage. It's a high risk, high reward type of playstyle, where the more you slam, the stronger you get, but you've gotta be tough enough to take the initial damage. For gear, we are going to be focusing on high armor and two-handed maces. That will boost our big slam bonuses even more, so we'll be extremely tanky with amazing upgrades and scaling into the endgame, and with amazing clear speed, and bosses will melt in seconds under our insane AoE pressure. So if you like aggressive melee playstyle and don't mind taking few hits to dish out triple or even quadruple the normal build's damage, then the Smith of Kitava warrior build is definitely for you. So let me show you the build, and for the main class we are going with warrior and our ascendancy is Smith of Kitava. Then for the first skill we have Mage Strike with the support gems like the Ruthless, Overpower and Close Combat. Then second we got the Bone Shatter with the Impact Shockwave, Magnified Effect and Reach. Next we got Infernal Cry with Premeditation and Raging Cry. Next we have Perfect Strike with the Window of Opportunity, Fire Infusion and Execute. Then for the next one we have Herald of Ash with Cannibalism. Next we got Leap Slam with the Martial Tempo, Bring, Holy Descent and Candace. Next we have Scavenge Plating with Persistence. Then also we got Hammer of the Gods with Concentrated Effect, Heavy Swing, Brutality and Fist of War. Next up we have Seismic Cry with the Raging Cry and Enraged Cry. And finally we're using Berserk with no support gems. Most of this setup is structured around spamming Bone Shatter to delete enemies in split seconds, so we use gems and skills that will support and increase their duration, size and damage, while the rest are powerful buffs and utility skills that usually get activated in the background. Next up we have our passive tree, and if you're interested in a full in-depth guide on how it works, then check out my beginner guide. So let's take a look at our setup, and we want to start at this melee damage node, and then go like this while taking these two, so Brutal and Smash. Then next keep going until we get these two, so Blood Rush on the right and Unstoppable Barrier on the left. Then from here keep on going until we get to the Singular Purpose. Then afterwards go until this point and then go up top right here until we get the Resolute technique. Next up circle back a little and then keep going until the end and then go to the bottom. And keep going until we get these two, so Bruised Shanked and the Giant's Blood. And then finally from here I recommend to go up top right here and get all of these, and then get the rest of them, but to be honest, after the second keystone, the rest nodes are more of a personal preference. All of these nodes that we got are very useful, but the ones I mentioned have the top priority, as they're the most important ones to acquire early on in the game, to make our build functional, and then later on, the priority won't really matter that much. And then now let's go all the way to the middle again, and for Ascendancy build, this is what we have. So at the beginning you want to unlock the Cold Stalker. This will give us a huge resistance boost in order to easily reach 75% elemental resistances during the campaign and make our fight super easy. Then second we want the Forge in Flames, that boosts our elemental resistances now to 90%. As this new update is much harder, so focusing more on survivability at the start will really pay off later in the game. And then next we want the Smith's Masterwork and go with the leather bindings, Molten Symbol, Glowing Metal and the Kitavan engraving. All of these will give us 5% regen, which makes the boss fights much easier. Then also Body Armor gives us 25% physical damage from hits, then we get 5% more max fire resistance from armor, and our Body Armor even further gives us 15% increased max life. And by the way, this website was bugged for some reason, so that's why you can see that I've selected these Ascendancy nodes on the website. Next we have gear. The weapon of our choice is the Disintegrating Maul, which causes enemies to explode on critical kills, then adds physical damage, increased physical damage, more accuracy, increased attack speed and reduced attribute requirements. Then also we got an offhand called the Goldwork Tower Shield with armor, and for more we want increased block chance, max life, physical damage reduction, and fire and lightning resistance. Then for helmet we have the Great Helm with armor, and for more we got even more armor, accuracy rating, max life, increased critical hit chance, more to strength and chaos resistance. Then for chest we have the Ornate Plate with armor, armor, and for more we get that our max life get generated from 1.5 to 2.5% max life per second, plus additional life regen every 4 seconds that gives us 15% max life. Then also we get even more max life and fire resistance. Then for belt we have the white belt with increased flask charges, max life, max mana, more strength and fire resistance. Then for gloves we get the Empire Grasp with armor, and for more we get increased armor, more strength, gain life every kill and increased global physical damage. However, this unique is not required for this build to work, so if you can afford it or get it, then try to look for something similar. Then for boots we're using the carved greaves with armor, and for more we get increased movement speed, max life, max mana, more to strength and stun threshold. Then for first ring we got the ruby ring with fire resistance, adds cold damage to attacks, max mana, more to strength and even more fire resistance. While then for the second one we have the same ruby ring but this time with fire resistance, max life, adds physical damage, more to all attributes and lightning resistance. And then finally for amulet we have the jade amulet with dexterity, max life, max mana, more to spirit, more dexterity and fire and cold resistance. No matter which gear you choose, just at least try to get 75% resistance cap on all 4 elements. This is the best case scenario setup, which should be more of an example of what stats and prefixes to look for. And now finally, let's quickly take a look at how this build will work. This build's core gameplay centers around managing stun threshold and detonating enemies in rapid high impact bursts. The general approach to clearing is to leap into packs using the leap slam, which builds heavy stun on enemies. Once enough stun is built, so 40% for normal, 60 for magic, 70 for rares, and 80 for uniques, then enemies become primed, which is visually indicated by a glowing orb above them. You then want to trigger the Bone Shatter, which detonates prime enemies and causes large AoE damage and potentially chaining skills across entire groups. Any enemies that survive this initial wave, such as the stragglers, can be finished off by using the Mace Strike, or follow that up by the Leap Slam. Then however, against tougher rare monsters that resist splash damage, then Hammer of the Gods is your go-to for direct hits and cleanup. Then for bosses and single target scenarios, this build will shift towards calculated burst windows, so you will need to rotate between the Perfect Strike and the Hammer of the Gods, and then boosting their impact even further with Infernal Cry and Seismic Cry for maximum uptime and AoE reach. Bosses with mobility or higher resistance are first of all softened up by Mace Strike to build stun, and then hammered with the Bone Shatter for the kill. When possible, you even can tank hits on purpose to fuel the additional perfect strikes and increase our overall damage output. As you can tell, this playstyle revolves around precision timing, positioning and quick decision making, so things like animation cancelling via the dodge roll will let you leap and slam, while keeping your mobility very high. This setup revolves around players who like to keep things safe, but still do massive amounts of damage. You will be fast, flashy and full of explosions, and here's how it works. We'll fire off glacial bolts that leave behind ice crystals, which then we blow up for massive amounts of damage. And if you want to automate this process for the endgame, then just use Cast on Freeze to trigger freezing mark instantly. That way your explosions will chain off like fireworks with zero downtime. In general, you can start this build as early as level 30 and use it all the way to the endgame, including the pinnacle bosses. And the best part about it is that no rare uniques are required, so this makes it perfect for solo self-found or pretty much any player who wishes to play a powerful build without the stash full of meta equipment. So let me show you the build, and for the main class we're going with a huntress and our ascendancy is Amazon. Then for the first skill we have Glacial Bolt with support gems like the Ice Bite, Scatter Shot, Cold Infusion, Primal Armament and Bullseye. Then second we got the Artillery Ballista with the Fire Infusion, Martial Tempo, Culling Strike, Rising Tempest and Blind Side. Next we got the Herald of Ice with the Reach, Magnified Effect, Cold Mastery and Execute. Next we have Hypothermia with the Heightened Curse, Curse Ground and Ritualistic Curse. Then for the next one we have Thunderous Sleep with no support gems. Next we got the Cast on Freeze with the Freezing Mark, Impetus, Energy Retention and Overabundance. Then next we have Eye of Winter with the Cold Exposure, Unleash, Inevitable Critical and Deceleration. Then also we got the Ghost Dance with the Fast Forward and Precision. And finally we're using the Wind Dancer with the Pin, Wind Wave and Blind. Most of this setup is structured around spamming the Glacial Bolts to delete enemies in split seconds, So we use gems and skills that will support and increase their duration, speed and damage, while the rest are powerful buffs and utility skills that usually get activated in the background. Next up we have our passive tree, and if you're interested in a full in-depth guide on how it works, then check out my beginner guide. So let's take a look at our setup, and we want to start at this attack damage node and then go like this while taking these two. So primal instincts and eagle eye. Then next keep going forwards until we get these three. So primal sundering, precision salvo and escape velocity. Then from here we keep on going forwards until the end point and then go to the bottom right here and get these two. So acceleration and falcon dive. Then next up we circle back to this point and then go up top and get all of these nodes right here. And finally from this point and onwards you can unlock the rest of the nodes in whatever order you prefer. All of these nodes that we got are very useful, but the ones I mentioned have the top priority, as they're the most important ones to acquire early on in the game, to make our build functional, and then later on the priority won't really matter that much. And then now let's go all the way to the middle again, and for ascendancy build this is what we have. So at the beginning you want to unlock the critical strike, which drastically increases your critical hit chance if you scale the accuracy like I've done for our gear. And to use this fully we need to stand near the enemy to not waste any of our accuracy. Then second we got penetrate. This allows you to gain massive added physical damage from your weapon. This is a boost in damage but also makes it easier to find a high DPS weapon. Then next we get the stalking panther, which drastically increases your evasion rating. So make sure to use an energy shield body armor to gain more defenses while avoiding this node's downside. And finally we got predatory instincts that adds even more boss damage. This helps massively on extremely hard encounters like the pinnacle bosses, but also saves you time on map bosses and rare targets. Next we have gear. The weapon of our choice is the tense crossbow with increased bolt speed, increased physical damage more to accuracy, more to critical damage bonus, and increased attack speed. Then for helmet we have the chapped hood with evasion rating, and for more we want evasion rating, max life, fire and cold resistance. Then for chest we have the sacramental robe with energy shield, and for more we want faster start to energy shield recharge, increased max energy shield, then even more energy shield and more to spirit. Then for belt we have the heavy belt with increased stun, max life, max mana and more to charm slots. Then for gloves we got the barbed braces with evasion rating, and for more we want even more evasion, more accuracy, lightning and chaos resistance. Then for boots we're using the dragon scale boots with evasion, and for more we want increased movement speed, more evasion, then increased evasion and fire resistance. Then for our first ring we got the prismatic ring with more to all elemental resistances, more accuracy and max life, while for the second one we have the same exact ring, so just copy the first one. And then finally for amulet we have the solar amulet with more to spirit, max life, max energy shield and then even more to spirit. No matter which gear you choose, just at least try to get 75% resistance cap on all 4 elements. This is the best case scenario setup, which should be more of an example of what stats and prefixes to look for. Finally, let's quickly take a look at how this build will work. So as you can tell, our whole build pretty much revolves around spamming the glacial bolts and seeing the enemies explode. So at the start we wanna first of all fire a single crossbow projectile that explodes on impact, leaving behind a cluster of ice crystals. Destroying those ice crystals will trigger a cold AoE explosion that deals attack damage, scaling it with your weapon and any other attack based stat. To maximize the effect, make sure that you're landing a glacial bolt directly on the enemies. But keep in mind though that these ice crystals can block your movement if you're not careful. With some practice you will learn how to fire and move without trapping yourself in a frosty maze. But then as soon as you can, boost your glacial bolt to 20% quality. This upgrade lets you reload 3 bolts at once instead of just 1, which is going to be huge for your damage uptime. Normally you'd need manually to blow up the cast on freeze ice crystals by using a second skill, but this build takes a smarter route. By pairing the cast on freeze with the freezing mark, the explosion is fully automated, so by firing the glacial bolt will freeze your target and explode. The freezing mark detonates instantly, setting off your ice crystal in a satisfying chain reaction. And then finally we will throw a herald of the ice into the mix, and those explosions will start chaining like crazy, which then in return creates these screen-wide crazy chain reactions and massive DPS explosions. This setup is a fast-paced, high-ceiling build that revolves around scaling poison damage through fast-hitting attacks, and by primarily using Lightning Spear as its core damage skill. We will take full advantage of high attack speed, projectile scaling and poison stacking to clear packs and melt bosses. Each spear will apply multiple poison stacks, and with proper setup, enemies will quickly die in a second or two. Supporting skills like the Storm Lance and Infused Weapon will allow the huntress to reposition constantly, while avoiding incoming damage and keeping the pressure while doing insane amount of damage at the same time. And buffs like the Sniper's Mark and the Herald of Plague increases enemy vulnerability, while Orb of Storms will help with constant poison stacking and curse triggers and much more. If you are looking to simply use 2 buttons and destroy enemies in a second, then this is the build for you. So let me show you the build, and for the main class we are going with the Huntress and our ascendancy is Amazon. Then for the first skill we have Herald of the Plague with Precision. Then second we got the Sniper's Mark with Profusion, Ingenuity and Arcane Tempo. Then next we got Infused Weapon with the Blind, Elemental Focus, Magnified Effect, Culling Strike and Concentrated Effect. Next we have Lightning Spear with the Fork, Bursting Plague, Bullseye, Martial Tempo and Innervate. Then for the next one we have the Storm Lance with the Close Combat, Perpetual Charge, Primal Armament, Rising Tempest and the Blind Side. Then next we got the Orb of Storms with Font of Rage, Chain and Inevitable Critical. Then next we got the Ghost Dance with Fast Forward. Next up we have the Roja Mount with Loyalty, Meat Shield and Minion Mastery. Then also we got the Wind Dancer with the Pin. And finally we're using Despair with a Heightened Curse, Persistence and Inspiration. And don't forget to assign the Orb of Storms to only weapon set 2. Most of this setup is structured around spamming Sniper's Mark with the Lightning Spear to delete enemies in split seconds. So we use gems and skills that will support and increase their duration, size and damage, while the rest are powerful buffs and utility skills that usually get activated in the background. Next up we have our passive tree, and if you are interested in a full in-depth guide on how it works, then check out my beginner guide. So let's take a look at our setup, and we want to start this attack damage node, and then keep going while taking these 2, so Primal Instincts and Eagle Eye. Then next we want to keep on going while taking these 3, so Lasting Toxins, Escape Velocity and Cooked. Then next we keep on going until the end and then get these 2 on your way, so Maiming Strike and Catalyst. Then when we get to this endpoint, then now we go down and get all of these right here. And then finally from here I recommend to get all of these right here, and then after that is done you can circle back to this middle point and then get all of these right here. However, all of the nodes that we got are very useful, but the ones I mentioned have the top priority, as they're the most important ones to acquire early on in the game to make our build functional, and then later on the priority won't really matter that much. And then now let's go all the way to the middle again, and for Ascendancy build this is what we have. So at the beginning you want to unlock Critical Strike. This one focuses on enhancing the power and efficiency of your critical hits. You will gain significant bonuses to Critical Strike chance and Critical Strike multiplier. This node often provides with increased global Critical Strike chance, making your hits more likely to land a critical, which is the key for scaling damage in a high-end content. Then second we want Penetrate. Whether it's elemental resistances, armor, evasion or energy shields, this will give us a massive damage boost. Penetrate is just not about damage, it's also about ensuring that your damage always lands. So this ascendancy will thrive on debuffing, piercing and breaking defenses, which is ideal for dealing constant high value hits in both fast paced and long boss fights. Then next we want Elemental Infusion. At its core, this ascendancy will offer bonuses that boost elemental penetration, allowing your attacks to bypass a portion of the enemy resistances. It also significantly improves the application of elemental elements, such as Shock, Ignite and Chill, which makes it ideal for builds that apply damage over time, or also benefit from the elemental debuffs. And then finally we are going with Predatory Instincts, which is designed to enhance agility, offensive power and damage scaling through increased critical strike chance, attack speed and evasion. You will gain increased critical strike chance against enemies that are on low life. And then on top of this, the added attack speed will boost your offensive capability, allowing you to apply damage faster and stack debuffs like the Bleed or Poison at a very fast pace. Next we have our gear. The weapon of our choice is the Splinter of Lorata with physical damage, increased melee strike range, and all poisons can affect multiple targets at the same time. However, this weapon is required for our playstyle to work. Then also we got an offhand called the Lyco Seidei, but the shield is not required, so if you can't get it or afford it, then look for something similar. Then also we got the second weapon set, and for our second weapon we're using the Swift Spear with increased weapon speed, increased physical damage, more accuracy and increased attack speed. While for our offhand we got the Coiled Buckler Shield with evasion rating, max life and lightning resistance. Then for helmet we have the Cowled Helm with armor and evasion, and for more we have max life, more accuracy rating and fire resistance. Then for chest we have the Shrouded Vest with evasion rating, and for more we got even more evasion rating, max life and chaos resistance. Then for belt we have the double belt with armor, max life, fire and cold resistance. Then for gloves we got the Plague Finger with evasion and energy shield. And for extras we got increased attack speed, more chance to poison on a hit, and all damage from hits will contribute to our poison magnitude. And these gloves with our weapon are the only items that are 100% required for this build to function properly. Then for boots we're using the elegant slippers with the energy shield, and for more we have max life, increased max energy shield, fire and lightning resistance. Then for our first ring we got the sapphire ring with the cold resistance, adds fire and lightning damage to attacks, max mana and fire resistance. While for the second one we have the amethyst ring with the chaos resistance, and for more we got adds fire and cold damage to attacks, more to elemental resistances and lightning resistance. And then finally for amulet we have the crimson amulet with the life regen per second, accuracy rating, max life, more to spirit and more to all attributes. No matter which gear you choose, just at least try to get 75% resistance cap on all 4 elements. This is the best case scenario setup, which should be more of an example of what stats and prefixes to look for. And now finally, let's quickly take a look at how this build will work. So our rotation is quite simple, but you will need to get used to it. Your main goal is to keep spamming Storm Lance until you fully burn through all of your frenzy charges. And once you've depleted them, that's the ideal moment to reapply the Sniper's Mark. If you get the perfect timing, then you will keep the most optimal damage. However, don't stress too much if you end up casting the Storm Lance. An extra time here and there without the frenzy charges active is totally fine and doesn't impact the flow of our rotation that much. A good general rhythm is to aim for about 3 Storm Lance attacks per the Sniper's Mark cast, but for simple trash enemies you can just cast Sniper's Mark, and then the Lightning Spear, and it should kill everything on the screen. And depending on how much attack speed you've stacked, it can even be efficient to simply hold down both Storm Lances and the Sniper's Mark together. Your cooldowns and timing will naturally align well enough to let the gameplay flow smoothly without the constant micromanagement. Then as for Orb of Storms, you will want to drop it right before a boss spawns or when you're in close range combat. It's great for triggering effects and keeping up constant damage in a tight spaces. And don't forget to apply Despair when fighting bosses that aren't currently cursed, as it is a very easy thing to overlook, but it makes it a notable difference in your overall damage output. This setup is structured around using Contagion in combination with other chaos skills that will curse and explode enemies in very wide area. Overall, our main spammable skills have quite high mana cost to make it efficient, and that's why we are going to be using a wand like the Life Spring, which leeches percentage of max life when you cast spells. And on top of this, we can also use Asterisk Accuracy Gloves to get instant leech from our critical hits, so then this combination would completely remove the mana from equation, and give us the ability to infinitely spam chaos skills and do massive amounts of damage, without worrying about anything. The main gameplay idea behind our setup is to one-shot most enemies, and as they will die, they will continuously replenish our life and energy shield. However, for bosses, we will need to be careful, as not getting stun-locked is our main priority, and that's why we will use a specific setup, such as putting Despair in our multiple skill slot and much more. So let me show you the build, and for the main class we are going with the Witch and our ascendancy is Lich. Then for the first skill we have Contagion with Unleash and Magnified Effect. Then second we got the Withering Presence with Persistence. Then next we got Essence Drain with Pierce, Swift Affliction and Profanity. Next we have Despair with Decaying Hex and Heightened Curse. Then for the next one we have Blasphemy with the Hex Bloom, Despair and Ritualistic Curse. Then next we got the Frost Bomb with Fast Forward and Spell Cascade. And finally, we're using Shield Charge with the Martial Tempo. Most of this setup is structured around using Contagion with the Essence Drain to delete enemies in split seconds. So we use gems and skills that will support and increase their duration, size and damage, while the rest are powerful buffs and utility skills that usually get activated in the background. Next up we have our passive tree, and if you're interested in a full in-depth guide on how it works, then check out my beginner guide. So let's take a look at our setup, and we want to start the spell and minion damage node, and then go like this while taking these 3, so Open Mine, Raw Destruction and Practice Signs. Then next we keep on going to the left and get everything until the spiral into Insanity. Then from here we circle back a little and keep on going until we get Entropy, and then take right. Then when we are here we want to get all of these, so first up take the top side and then the bottom side, and then again keep on going until we get to the actual end and then take right. And when we get to here, then get both of these, so Dark Entries and the Patient Barrier. And now finally from here we can go down and get this whole left side, but usually at this point you can unlock the rest of the nodes in whatever order you prefer. All of these nodes that we got are very useful, but the ones I mentioned have the top priority, as they're the most important ones to acquire early on in the game to make our build functional, and then later on the priority won't really matter that much. Also, as far as attributes go, you just simply won't fulfill your attribute requirements for gear and gems, and then after that spend the rest in intelligence. And then now let's go all the way to the middle again, and for Ascendancy build, this is what we have. So at the beginning you want to unlock the Soulless form. This offers substantial benefits. It will require careful balancing of life and energy shield values, and investing in energy shield is crucial, as it serves as a buffer that prevents life loss. However, if your energy shield is depleted, the bypass damage will affect your life, which makes it essential to manage both resources effectively. Then second, we want the Eternal Life. When we combine this with the Soulless form, it will provide a robust defensive layer, by ensuring that your life remains unchanged as long as you have energy shield remaining. You will be able to take damage without compromising your life. Then third, we want the Necromantic Condient. To effectively utilize this node, we need to invest into mana regeneration and max mana, and this will ensure that mana drain does not hinder our overall performance. If done properly, this setup can significantly increase our damage and give this one-shot AoE potential. And lastly, we got Blackened Heart. Because of our already higher maximum mana, this will not only enhance the Unholy Might buff, but also support the other Lich mechanics that scale with it. By using this 4-node combo, we will do insane damage, but a significant mana drain could become an issue, and that's why you need to follow the specific gear setup. Next we have our gear. The weapon of our choice is the Lifespring Wand with the mana drain, max mana, increased cast speed, and the ability to leech percentage of max life whenever we cast a spell. You of course don't have to use this specific weapon if you can afford it, so in any case try to look for something similar. Then also we got an offhand called the Antler Focus with energy shield, reduced attribute requirements, and more levels of all spell skills. Then for helmet we have the Jungle Tiara with energy shield, max life, max energy shield, and more to fire resistance. Then for chest we have the Anchorite Garb with evasion and energy shield. Then also more spirit, max life, and cold resistance. Then for belt we have the Rawhide Belt with increased life flask recovery, max life, and fire and lightning resistance. Then for gloves we got the Torn Gloves with energy shield, max life, and chaos resistance. Then for boots we are using the Silk Slippers with energy shield, increased movement speed, max mana, max life, and lightning resistance. Then for our first ring we got the Sapphire Ring with cold resistance, max life, more to intelligence, and more to cold resistance. While for the second one we have the Ruby Ring with more to fire resistance, max mana, max life, and lightning resistance. And then finally for amulet we have the Solar Amulet with more to spirit, max life, and chaos resistance. No matter which gear you choose, just at least try to get 75% resistance cap on all 4 elements. This is the best case scenario setup, which should be more of an example of what stats and prefixes to look for. And now finally, let's quickly take a look at how this build will work. The core damage of our setup is Chaos, which we can use to deal devastation through toxic and cursed spells. You will need to focus on skills that deal Chaos damage over time, such as the Essence Drain, Contagion, and the Malice Burst. And then for defense, we will rely on Energy Shield, so you'll use Life Leech to convert Chaos damage into healing, which will allow you to stay alive during tough encounters. So, we want to start fights by casting Essence Drain that spreads Chaos damage over area, which applies a debuff that makes enemies explode on death, causing AoE damage to nearby enemies as well. We want to maximize its potential by scaling up damage and AoE efficiency. Then also we could use Malice Burst, which is a powerful burst of Chaos energy that can be used to hit multiple enemies at once, and it is perfect for clearing large groups of enemies quickly. And then finally we can finish it off with the Contagion, that spreads Chaos damage over time to the enemies, and it's perfect for applying Chaos damage debuffs to the enemies before they die, which triggers cascading explosions. So this setup is a new combo between the Spark Sorceress and the Cast Comet and the Time Freeze. Our build will rely on high spark crits rather than drowning them in hundreds of different sparks. This way our clear speed will be as good as any other sorceress, but against bosses is the place where we are going to shine. Our crit scaling will reach crazy levels of damage. Even if you don't one-shot the boss, then you will have about 13 to 14 seconds, plus 7 seconds, and even 3 more additional seconds of the time stops in your disposal. So if you are ready to destroy enemies and pretty much one-shot the bosses, then this is the one for you. So let me show you the build, and for the main class we are going with the sorceress and our ascendancy is the chronomancer. Then for the first skill we have time freeze with the wind wave, second wind and unbreakable. Then second we got the time snap with no support gems. Then next we got temporal rift with ingenuity. Next we have temporal chains with the cursed ground, encumbrance, expanse, magnified effect and ritualistic curse. Then for the next one we have the cast on critical with the comet, spell echo, elemental focus, inspiration and the concentrated effect. Next we got conductivity with the heightened curse and the focus curse. Next we got the soul offering with the minion mastery, dance macrobee and the ablation. Next we have frost wall with the icicle, cold mastery, spell cascade and the cold exposure. Next up we have the archmage with the clarity and the lightning mastery. And finally we are using the spark with the acceleration, electrocute, consider casting, arcane surge and the arcane tempo. Most of this setup is structured around using our sparks for AoV and temporal chains with time freeze for the single target. So we use gems and skills that will support and increase their duration and damage, while the rest are powerful buffs and utility skills that usually get activated in the background. Next up we have our passive tree, and if you're interested in a full in-depth guide on how it works, then check out my beginner guide. So let's take a look at our setup, and we want to start at the spell damage node, and then go like this while taking all of these three, so the raw power, practice science and the critical overload. Then now we keep on going until we get to the sudden escalation. Then from here again we keep going until the top and then take right. And then keep going until we get to the Whispers of the Doom, and then get both these lightning nodes. Then afterwards we keep going while taking pretty much all of these nodes right here, and then our second stop point is at this Eldritch Battery Keystone. And then finally from here we want to get all the way down here while taking these three, so the True Strike, for the Juggler and the Deadly Force. And now from this point and onwards we can circle back and unlock the rest of the nodes in whatever order you prefer. All of these nodes that we got are very useful, but the ones I mentioned have the top priority, as they're the most important ones to acquire early on in the game, to make our build functional, and then later on the priority doesn't really matter that much. And then now let's go all the way to the middle again, and for Ascendancy build this is what we have. So at the beginning you want to unlock the footprints in the sand. Then second, now and again. Then next we want the ultimate command, and then finally select the unbound and core. So feel free to use this exact same path as we have right here. And don't forget to check this video's description to find the link for this website. And this should make it easier for you to follow the path. Next we have our gear. The weapon of our choice is the Siphoning Wand, and for the bonus stats we want to gain damage as extra lightning damage, increase spell damage, more to max mana, more levels to all cold spells, increased mana regen and critical hit chance. Then also we got an offhand called the Expert Plummet Focus with Energy Shield. And for more we want increased spell and lightning damage, max mana, more to intelligence and increased mana regen and critical hit chance to spells. Then also we have the second weapon set, which is very important for our build to fully function. So for the weapon we got the Rattling Scepter with the max mana, reduced attribute requirements and more levels of all minion skills. While for our offhand we got the Crest of the Artura Shield with increased armor and energy shield, more to intelligence, and increased mana regen and cooldown recovery. Then for helmet we have the Expert Feather Tiara with energy shield, and for more we got max energy shield, max mana and more to fire and cold resistance. Then for the chest we have the Expert Kate Raiment with energy shield, and for more we want increased mana regen and flask mana recovery, more to spirit and chaos and lightning resistance. Then for the belt we have the Plate Belt with more to armor, max mana and cold and fire resistance. Then for gloves we got the Expert Sombri Gloves with energy shield, and for more we want max energy shield, max mana and more to critical damage bonus. Then for boots we're using the Expert Feather Sandals with energy shield, and for more we need increased movement speed, max energy shield and max mana. Then for our first ring we got the Amethyst Ring with the chaos resistance, and for more we want increased lightning damage, max mana, increased cast speed and mana regen. While for the second one we have the Breach Ring with increased cold and lightning damage, max mana, increased cast speed and increased mana regen rate. And then finally for amulet we have the Solar Amulet with more to spirit. And for bonus stats we want max mana, more to spirit and increased mana regen. No matter which gear you choose, just at least try to get 75% resistance cap on all 4 elements. This is the best case scenario setup, which should be more of an example of what stats and prefixes to look for. And now finally, let's quickly take a look at how this build will work. So our rotation is quite simple, but you will need to get used to it. So what we want to do is first of all start by using the temporal chains. Then we follow that up with the conductivity. Then next use the time freeze in the combination with the soul offering. Then next we also want to activate the frost wall, and then from here just spam the sparks until the boss dies. But mainly for AoE and weak enemies, we basically will turn into a spark build. So just keep spamming sparks and see all of these crazy crits popping off left and right. The only thing you need to keep in mind is the defense. Our build does not have energy shields, so mind over matter is a good defensive layer, but should not be heavily relied on in the endgame. While the time freeze has a high cooldown, so feel free to use it 24/7. Then also the second wind for 33% no cooldown. And then the time snap reset will allow you to use the time freeze continuously in the combat. Overall, if you can master these skills, then you will become unkillable with very high DPS output at the same time.